Hello and welcome to my video. So, seems like God wanted you to see the beard. People are very into beards these days. So, I guess that this is the beard talking. So, if my beard had to speak to you, what would my beard say? My beard says like this. I want to define, I gave a class, I teach Kabbalah. I'm the author of KabbalahWisdom.org. And a lady, very spiritual, very special lady, said to me that, she senses that one of the things I've done, which I really recommend everybody to do, is to stop going to the media. You see, the media is the greatest force of depression that can come. Because, you see, the thing that makes us happy or sad is our mind. If you're thinking positive, you'll be positive. If you, go to an island and you think, okay, this is a beautiful place, well, you'll be happy. If you're watching a movie and you see a sad scene, you'll be sad. The mind, the thoughts, create emotions. So you're feeling what it is that you are seeing, or what it is that you're thinking, because thinking is another form of seeing, right? Call it the mind's eye. And so the first thing we need to do is we have to stop engaging in the media. What is the media? The media is basically a company. And what is the company trying to do? Well, it's trying to sell a product. And what is the product that the company is trying to do? Well, the product, of course, is advertisement. I saw this documentary on Facebook, and this very bright guy said, who owns Facebook? So you would think, well, it's Mark Zuckerberg. But it's not Mark Zuckerberg. It's the advertisers. Because Facebook is a for-profit organization. So it does what is for-profit. So whatever the advertisers want. If I come to Facebook with a $100 billion check, they'll do anything I want. Why? Because basically a company is there for profit. And anything that's there for profit is a whore of the profit. Unless a person is a very moral person and says, okay, I'm going to do this and nothing will change my morals. But 99% of companies are basically whores. They're just doing what's in their interest. And so what is a media? It's a whore to money. Now, I want to be very clear. Money is not a bad thing. Obama, the evil one, brought about this notion as if the guy gets millions for speeches and everything as if he doesn't like money. That's the thing with radicals. They tell everybody else what's wrong while they engage in the very same things that they're saying what's wrong. But in any event, money is a good thing. Money is a tool. Money is like energy. It's like fire. Is fire good or bad? Well, it depends. You can cook with it. You can burn a house down. It depends what you do with it. It's the same thing as with money. Money is the greatest opportunity to make the world a better place because you can help people. So money's not a bad thing. I have a 10 steps to attaining positive wealth. And in fact, if you Google Kabbalah on money, it will come up. So the point is, money has to have a leader. It's like a dog and the guy who's walking it. Who's walking who? Well, it depends who's stronger. Is the instincts of the dog stronger? Or is the resolve of the man stronger? So if your resolve is to do good, and that's stronger than your desire, then you will do your resolve. If your desire is stronger than your resolve, then you're going to do your desire. It's quite simple. It's like dieting. It's like exercise. It's like everything in life. Which desire is your desire, your resolve stronger? And whichever one is stronger is going to win. So the bottom line is we're in a time that the actual media is just media sensationalization, taking something small and making it big so you should become afraid. And therefore, fear is a very powerful emotion. The more afraid you are, the more miserable you're going to be in your life. 2 weeks before the election, I got so sick and tired of the kangaroo media. Suddenly they're, election happens, they find something else. That's the media. It's sensationalization. It's just baloney stories. But because it's in the minds of people, it's very important to address. So this lady asked me a question. Her question was, she says something's wrong. We've got these riots, quote unquote, such holy people standing up for Black lives, and they're making riots. They must be so dedicated to this wonderful cause, such moral people. She says something's right. If Obama was so moral, how is it that he created such hate? Think about it. Somebody who's loving should create love, not hate. So it's very important to understand, it's one of the most important lines in human history, and it came from a very great, brilliant Jewish saint called Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk. And he said, what is the difference between someone who loves truth or hates falsehood? What is the difference between someone who loves love or hates hate? The former will find what is lovable, and the latter will find who to hate. You see, when I love, the emotion in me is love. When I hate, the emotion in me is hate. And emotions drive the intellect. I think about what I desire. So if I like sex, well, if I'm a man, I find hot girls. If I'm a woman, I find hot guys. If I like money, I find opportunities to make money. If I like wisdom, I go to websites that teach me wisdom. We are driven completely, 100% by our desires. And we have many desires, but like I said before, it's the stronger desire that becomes the ultimate driving force. And so therefore, there are many people in this world that unfortunately have been abused. Now, what happens when you get abused, and all of abuse has a single goal, and that is to make somebody angry, to make somebody hate. By nature, when you're born, nobody is born with hatred. In fact, if you look at a baby, it's very interesting. A baby has a very blank face. It takes a couple of months before they smile. Why? Because a baby doesn't have either love or hate. It only has pain or pleasure. Eventually, it begins to find that certain people are loving to it. And that's why it's only when it receives love that it can give love. Unfortunately, we have these Russian orphanages where, unfortunately, a lot of Russians, they don't, for whatever reason, they're not brought up in love. They don't have love. And so they took care of these children, but they never gave them love. And the kids are a bit like zombies. They don't have any sense of love. In fact, you see this on Putin. Okay, I mean, he has certain qualities, but you don't see love in him. Because in order to give love, you have to get love. And so the baby that gets love then becomes a loving person. But if you're a loving person, you can also, the flip side of life is this. It says in Kabbalah, there's nothing higher than pleasure and nothing lower than pain. So you see, when a person has pleasure, if I give you pleasure, I don't know, let's say I give you something that you really enjoy, well, you love me. But God forbid if I give you pain, what's going to happen? How do you feel with a mosquito? You hate it because it makes you anxious. And so therefore there are many people in this world that unfortunately, and I think it's the greatest virus that exists, because people become jealous. Jealousy is the greatest virus. I'm mortified to say this, but I've been there, and God forbid if circumstances were different, we would be there because we're all basically the same. When we are in a state of anxiety, and one of the proofs is this, like this, 80% of divorce is initiated by women. Now, one of the greatest researchers into marriage and divorce is John Gottman, and he writes in the appendix of his book, 80%, and his research is so good that he could look at a couple, talk to each other for 5 minutes, and say with a 95% accuracy if they're going to get divorced or not. So 80% of divorce comes from the following reason. He gives an example, Aaron and Linda. He says Linda is not happy. She's not happy in life. Now, by nature, often women have double the rates of anxiety because they have what's called in Kabbalistic terms bina. Now, bina gives you a greater sense of reality. Now, if you have a greater sense of reality, you have greater fear because there's more to be afraid about, so you have greater anxiety. And so what happens is that you become jealous of your husband. Why should he be happy-go-lucky while I am fearful and anxious? Because anxiety is a painful experience. So you have these many people that they themselves have been bullied. You know, unfortunately in the black community, I have a friend who was a state legislator and he worked in the black community. I mean, this is terrible to say these statistics, but he told me if he would save 5 out of 10,000 children, meaning get them into a normal cycle, a job, make them normal citizens, he says that is a success rate. We can't imagine what's going on. They don't have fathers, very well known. God forbid, I'm not trying to, just in case anybody thinks I'm a racist, when I was in South Africa, I bought a home for a black lady, lovely woman. So the last thing I have is racism. But the fact of the matter is, the actual facts is, as the blacks themselves say, is they have a tremendous lack of role models. There are no fathers. Women are just having babies without any kind of thought of what's going on. And, you know, these grandmothers are really like taking care. But men need male role models. They need role models that show them good from evil. So this guy, in fact, was fortunate. He had a good role model. He's a wonderful person. But most of them don't. And there's so many mental illness because they don't have proper security. It's a terrible situation. So if you're miserable and you're arrogant, that's the other feature. The feature is that you have to believe, which we all are slightly arrogant, believe you're entitled, and in a certain sense there's nothing wrong with that. But then you have characters like Obama radicals, and this is the key. Very, very important. I'm not saying this to create, God forbid, hate, but to solve the issue. You know, Black Lives Matter is racism. And the reason it's racism because it's equally racist to hate whites as it is to hate blacks. Now, whites, what we do is we say, oh, well, we must be wrong. No, we're not wrong. We're the good people. We're the people, in fact, that includes blacks, that includes all good people. But we're the people who stand against racism, who give charity. Americans, and certainly Jews in America, are the most charitable people if you look statistically around the world. You know, our whites, whether they're Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, the rich people that these people hate, they're the most charitable people that exist, perhaps, in human history. They're the people that are saving blacks. They're the people that are doing good. I love it when there's black racism, not race, anti-Semitism. Who exactly are the people who did everything in their power, including sometimes giving their lives to free the black people from servitude and from apartheid? The Jews. So it's just so sick to see black racism. Black racism is as evil as white racism. There's no difference. And here's the proof of the matter. If what these people cared about were black lives, then they shouldn't be talking to whites, because the people who kill blacks aren't the police. Now, I'm sure there's some there's racial problems, but who are the main people that kill the blacks? Exactly like the Arabs. If the Arabs liked Arabs, they wouldn't be against Jews. Who are the main people who kill Arabs? Well, Arabs. Because Arabs, you know, look at all the wars that are going on. But they don't like Arabs. They don't love. They hate. And effectively, what hate is, it's people who have been abused. And first of all, they fear abuse, so they become very protective. And that's like a great psychiatrist once told me, the sign of, I don't know if you want to call it mental illness, but certainly fear is rigidity, right? The perfectionist streak. So Obama certainly had very much a perfectionist. That streak is fear. It's fear of being abused, fear of criticism. And so therefore, the flip side of fear is also jealousy of those who don't fear. And therefore, the mind desires to abuse these people, and just as they're fearing people, they fear criticism, therefore they're shaming. A lot of, probably 90% of what people fear is shame. And most societies are sick, Because a healthy society, look at the Japanese society, look at the German society, many of the Asian society, they don't exist in societies of respect for the rights of the individual. What they say, and it makes a lot of sense, is that there's right and wrong. They say the Japanese are not born, they're made. There's nowhere in the world that it says you have to bow this far to this person, but there's actually a unique anxiety in Japan around shaming someone else. So in other words, their whole structure of the society, the Arab society has this a lot, is all about honor and shame. It's not about love and sensitivity. It's about, basically, to be honest, it's about one-upmanship. It's about being better than the other person. But that's it. That's a lifetime's work of basically climbing this ladder that doesn't exist, and then you get jealous of somebody else. Well, this person, he doesn't even have that ladder. Like one of the Olympic, I think it was a gymnast. The Chinese, unfortunately, they just torture their children into kind of being successful a little bit, like the Russians did, and because they want to look good. And she comes to the kind of sees that it was, I think, the Australian gymnast, and these are girls. They're having a good time. They're Western society. They're free. It's just why are we just forcing? They were just nonstop. Success. But nothing about the individual, nothing about what's good for you. It's about what's good for our image. It's not about what's good for your souls, what's good for you, what's loving. And so this is what's so important to understand, that, and I think that ultimately in life, it boils down to every individual. It boils down to you right now realizing that there's always this, and in fact, it exists within ourselves. We all have within us an ego, and the ego is all about image. How do I look? Who am I better? Does someone shame me? And then there is truth, and truth has nothing to do with image. Truth is love. Every individual should be respected. The dignity of you, the dignity of the other is 100% sacred. And so this is perhaps what we need to understand, that those people that are quote unquote kind of righteous indignation, they're not standing for humanity, they're standing against humanity. And of course, I'm not here to put down anybody, but this Black Lives Matter, it's just very sad to see how Obama's radicalism infected the secular world, because the secular world, they don't have any morals, basically. They have no, they're good people, they're sweet people, but they have no direction. And so therefore, anybody that comes along, this is what Hitler did to Germany, and says, the Germans were good people, but he convinced them to become mass murderers. And they really believed that they were doing the right thing. The person who took my great-grandmother and gassed her to death, literally suffocated her to death, and did that to 1 million babies. It's unbelievable. They really believed from the media that they were good and they were doing the right thing. 2 million, it's just unfathomable. And I'm saying this to you, it's very important. If you have learned from Black Lives Matter, from Obama, who to hate, you have become a Nazi, including if you're Jewish. I love these Jews. They say, well, I'm Jewish. It doesn't make a difference if you're Jewish. If you are anti-Jewish, you are a Nazi. You're a Jewish Nazi. Don't think that let's not even go there. Bottom line is, if you hate, you are a Nazi. Whether you're a white radical, whether you're a black radical, whether you're a Jewish radical, anybody who hates is a Nazi. And it's very important to say that, because it's the one term that we all know is evil, right? Pure evil. And that's exactly what these people subconsciously want. They want the destruction of everyone else, and that they should rule the world. And this is when the ego dominates the mind. The ego is an addiction. It is an insanity. You see it with Kim Jong-un, right? It's just complete insanity. But he's not sane, because his ego, as Hitler, is dominating him, and he's addicted to his false sense of grandeur. And therefore, if you wish to be normal, loving, kind, You have to understand that within you is this same challenge. You have an ego. You have love. And the only way, there is no other way. We're coming up to Rosh Hashanah. It's going to be this Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday. And the only way we overcome our ego is, first of all, realizing that we have it. You can't heal yourself. They say 50% of the cure is realizing the illness. You and I have within us pure, rotten, sadistic evil. All of pornography is the pleasure of demeaning a woman. It's evil, pure evil. And if we don't realize that we have it within us, we cannot overcome it. Now, we must overcome our own evil. And the first way we overcome it is by realizing that we have it. People are all the same. It's just a question of what is dominating the individual. Is he being dominated by his emotion of love? Is he being dominated by his emotion of fear? Is he being dominated by a drug? Is he being dominated by shame? Is he being dominated by hate? And that's a real emotion. None of us want to be there, because all we're going to do is not only destroy others, we're going to permanently create a situation that not only will others shame us, but we will shame ourselves, because we always have within us also the good side, and the good side of us will always be ashamed of the bad side. That's why it says the wicked are full of shame, because you do something bad, okay, well, somebody, insulted you, insulting them back, but then you feel bad because you insulted them, and the good part of you feels shame from the bad part of you. So the only solution is that we have to realize that we have good in us and we have evil in us, and everybody has good in them and they have evil in them. And the only way you can choose the good in you is if you submit yourself to God. And this is the most important Kabbalistic teaching, and that is, you can have a direct understanding in all situations of what God wants from you. And ultimately, what is going on in the world today is that God, the Messiah, has actually come, and the Messiah is God himself. It's a very big subject, but I'm just giving the bottom line. The Messiah is God himself. And God, as is called, in Judaism, is called Ruach HaKodesh, which is at least the way God manifests himself. It's called the Holy Spirit, and God is available and accessible. And I'm going to give you the way that you can access the Ruach HaKodesh and the Holy Spirit, and this is brought down by the Rebbe. In fact, the Rebbe says this is how he lived his life, and he basically gave life and death advice to people, which worked, and it was all through this system. And it is that if you have a question, ask God. And the first thought that will come to your mind, right? First, not an impulse, an instinct, a thought. As you know, a thought is like speech, but to yourself. It's words. By the way, I have a friend that's in the military intelligence, and he told me that MIT, they've developed a technology where they can actually read thoughts. Thoughts are real. It's just like speech to the self. It's a wavelength, and there are various different machines that are getting better and better at doing that. The bottom line is, when you have the thought, not a feeling, not an intuition, but a thought. So I say to God, God, should I, become a doctor? God says to me, sometimes you have to wait, whatever. God says no. So that means no, you should not become a doctor. That is a real reply. And the beautiful thing about this is you can test it. If it works, and the work rate will be 100%, 100% you will feel good from doing these things. Because if I'm your friend and I tell you what to do, it will be something that will be pleasurable to you. If I'm your enemy and I tell you what to do, it's something that ends up painful to you. God is your friend. He wants to give you pleasure. But part of giving someone pleasure is a space to freely choose. So you have freedom of choice. You can be an idiot and not use this system. It's like you could be an idiot and not use technology. Or you could be wise and use technology. And this is spiritual technology. It's a technology for directing your life. Ask God. The first thought will be his answer to you. Again, try it. You'll see that it works. You'll become more and more accustomed to using God in your life. And may God truly grant us, because ultimately, this is very serious. Because we're all either going to be kind of servants of love or servants of hate. And may God grant us that we should all decide to be servants of love, no matter who hates you and who shames you. That was their mistake, their jealousy, and ultimately you have to have compassion on them, because somebody only does that to somebody else if they themselves were shamed and themselves are in pain. That creates this jealousy mechanism, and the person doesn't even know that they're jealous because their mind produces fantasies of why the other person deserves to be hated. I mean, all these people, they truly believe that whites are evil. Hitler truly believed that Jews are evil because he wanted to believe that, because it suited his emotion. And so therefore, we need to be the wise people. We need to grow. We need to feel compassion on evil people. And most important, we must not ourselves be evil. And there's only one way. And may God bless us that we should have the ability, the courage, and the desire to implement it.